Good morning, Facebook. Attorney Tim Anderson. Today is February 12th, 2020. Welcome to California. So last night, the Virginia Senate burned the midnight oil and was in session well into the early hours of the morning today. So lots of things happened yesterday. Lots of bills passed the Senate. That similar bills have passed the House. So I'm ready to tell you what Virginia is going to look like in July. Maybe not with exact precision, but with reasonable beliefs of how things are going to go. First off, as far as guns go, we all know 961 passed the House of Delegates, so it's going to go to the Senate. 961 is substantially watered down from its original format. So we talked about it. It's going to be legal to still have semi-automatic rifles, still going to be legal to have suppressors, still going to be legal to have the firearms that they were trying to prohibit. You're not going to have to register them. The tricks about 961 are that you'll have to have owned them before July 1st, and you're not going to be able to transfer or sell them or buy them after July 1st. So anything you have before July 1st, you're going to get to keep. Anything you have after, try to get after July 1st would be a crime. The big problem with 961 is going to be the magazine ban. They have made it to where all 12 magazines more than 12 rounds are going to be a misdemeanor to possess. No grandfather clause, meaning that if you have a magazine, pistol, rifle, it's going to have to be 12 or less. Otherwise, you're going to be committing a misdemeanor crime punishable up to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine. So that one has to go to the Senate. Out of all the bills I'm about to talk about, that's the only one that seems to have some resistance from the Senate. That one may not make it through. We'll see. But the rest of these, with all reasonable assurances, are going to make it through. Minimum wage going up. The House passed a bill. The Senate passed a bill. It's going to look something like this. Around $10 an hour starting next year, then 11, then 12, then 13, then 14, and then 15. So over the course of years through 2027, it's going to incrementally raise by somewhere around $1. Now the House has a little bit of a different version than the Senate, but they're both on the same page. Minimum wage is going to start moving up. So I'm going to do a video later today about minimum wage and give you an economics lesson. Many of you probably know I have an economics background, an economics degree from undergraduate. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about really what the economics impact is going to be with minimum wage. So if you want to watch that, that'll be later today. Casinos coming. Looks like we're going to have probably 5 full-service casinos in Virginia. Starting pretty soon. I mean, they're moving those forward. They've granted land to certain Indian tribes, and they are working through that. So expect to see some casinos popping up in Virginia, and not like the Colonial Downs. Just have to pull these machine casinos. They're going to be full-blown casinos. All right, I'm looking at all my notes. So if you are an illegal immigrant in the United States, going to be able to get a driver's permit card. They're not calling it a driver's license card. It's going to allow somebody who is undocumented the right to legally drive in Virginia. So if you are somebody who is illegally in the country and you are speeding and you get pulled over by the police officer, you'll be allowed to show him your Virginia driver permit card, privilege card, I guess is what it's going to be called, and that is going to be, he'll give you a ticket just like he would give anybody else, and that's how that goes. It's not going to allow the undocumented workers the right to vote in Virginia, but it is going to give them a state-issued ID card that will permit them to be allowed to drive in Virginia. They're also going to allow dreamers. These are kids that were brought here by their parents to have in-state tuition in Virginia, so long as and refugees and asylum seekers, those people who have been brought here that have graduated from a Virginia high school or who have lived here for a period of time will be able to receive in-state tuition at the public universities. All right, what else do we got here? Voter ID law. All right, well, this is a pretty easy one. So forget about having to have a voter ID law, voter ID when you driver's license when you go to vote. They've done away with that. Both chambers have, and so they have continued to claim that having a government-issued photo identification discriminates against unprivileged groups, despite the real facts and the real truth that the Virginia Election Commission will give anyone a free photo ID for the purposes of voting. They're going to allow out-of-state college IDs to be used, and more than likely, when it's all said and done, you're going to be able to vote just with a utility bill. All right, let's go. There's going to be automatic voter registration. That's going to be something that you're going to see. When you check into the DMV, it's going to automatically register you to vote. And this is a little bit of concern with allowing undocumented workers to get these privilege cards, but they promise that that is not going to happen. We'll see about that. All right, Confederate statutes, they're done. By all extent and purposes, Confederate statutes are going to start coming down. The localities are going to be allowed to move the Confederate monuments. They've not been allowed to do that under state law. That is going to allow localities to make those decisions. So expect to see the Confederate statutes coming down. Big transportation bill. And by the way, here's the big theme of the evening last night. We're going to pay a lot more for a lot of things. So here goes some of those things. Transportation. We're going to see $4 increase in registration fee every year that we register. There's going to be an 8-cent gas tax increase. Now, see, the problem with creating fuel economy cars, like hybrids that get 85 miles to the gallon, is that people don't buy as much gas. And so when they're not buying as much gas, the state isn't getting as much revenue. So the state's going to offset that by raising gas by 8 cents a gallon over the next couple of years. Let's see. Clean energy is coming. I was watching Senator DeStef talk about this on the Senate floor yesterday. By his calculations, we are going to all be paying about $25 to $40 more per month over the next 10 years in utility bills to offset the offshore wind that they're trying to get and moving other renewable resources online. There's a plant that's out in the western side of the state that has a coal plant that has a life of till 2050. They're going to take that offline at 2030, so they're going to scuttle a plant that has useful life for the purposes of complying with this law. So we are going to all see, we're going to be paying more for utilities while these renewable sources bring in. The House voted to put a 5-cent per plastic bag tax. So if you go to the grocery store and you get your groceries and they put them in plastic bags, there's going to be a 5-cent tax per plastic bag tax. That's likely going to pass the Senate. Marijuana, it looks like it's going to be decriminalized, although the Senate bill and the House bill are a little different. The House said the House said that anything under 1 ounce would be totally legal in Virginia. The Senate bill said that it would be a civil fine, kind of like a speeding ticket if you get caught, and you would pay a $50 fine. So more than likely, we're going to see marijuana be completely decriminalized this year. Abortion, they're going to allow anybody to do an abortion that, not anybody, but not just doctors. It's going to be different types of physician's assistants, nurse practitioners. That's going to be allowed. It will not have to be in a hospital. You're going to be able to see places that look like an urgent care facility where you'll be able to pop in and get an abortion without an ultrasound requirement, without the waiting period, and without necessarily being a doctor to do it. So let's see. Back to guns, universal background checks, they're going to go through. Red flag laws, they're going to go through. And the one gun per month seems to be, but that's something you can get around if you have a concealed carry permit. That's going to go through. So that's what happened last night while you were sleeping, and that's what you can expect for Virginia to look like starting on July 1. What's happening now is all the bills are crossing over. They're going to reconcile. Almost all the bills last way in the Senate went 21-19, which was basically the party line votes, Democrats versus Republicans. And so the Senate passed all of these bills. They're going to go to the House. The House will certainly pass everything the Senate did. The Senate bills are going to come over. The House is likely going to pass everything that they did, and then they're going to reconcile it. The only one that seems to have any real resistance is going to be the assault weapons ban, and that is still a very close call. So, welcome to California. I'll be doing that video later today about minimum wage so you really know what's going on. Have a good day, guys.